Thank you for joining Effortless Attraction. My name is Evelyn McAleer. I'm the author of A Life You Want, Effortless, and The Woman's Journey. I'm a life coach, business mentor, and inspirational speaker. And my greatest value is making a difference in people's lives. So I hope through these podcasts, I can make a difference to your life. A little bit more information before we pop on over to the podcast. So we're currently residing in the stunning province of Almeria in the south of Spain. As an extension of my mentoring and life coaching services, I'm now offering 4-night retreats tailored for women who are ready to prioritise themselves. So if you're a woman and you're interested in spending quality time with myself and 2 other participants, please visit my website for more details. Additionally, for business leaders and coaches who wish to have their own retreat here in Spain with their clients, I handle all of your logistics, including airport transfers, accommodation and meals for your group. If you'd like to request a retreat proposal, kindly send me an email. You'll get all of my contact information in the description below. Thank you.
Effortless Attraction podcast is sponsored by Colette Leeson Interview and Career Coaching. If you dream of landing your ideal job, consider Colette's services. With a success rate exceeding 90% among her interview clients, Colette offers personalized career guidance and interview coaching discreetly, both online and in person. She also conducts workshops and provides career advice talks. For further details, visit ColetteLeeson.com.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another Effortless Attraction podcast. Today, I am joined by Emma Quinn. I'm going to read you out a few little lines about Emma. She is a holistic interior designer with a background in life coaching. She helps homeowners create inspiring spaces that enhance their well-being and balance so that they can achieve their goals. And secondly, she's now launching her new book, Life by Design, which she was inspired to write after overcoming the anxiety and birth trauma that she experienced with her daughter back in 2020. And through sharing her story, she really hopes to help others who may be struggling and normalizing to talk about mental health. Emma, you are very welcome today and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Glad to be here.
You are a previous guest that I had said, you should go and check out this girl, Emma Quinn. I always get a feeling, I always go by energy, and that's predominantly what you're working with yourself. I'd said to you before we began here, you have a lovely, gentle voice. You have a lovely way of how you communicate. I like that. Can I start with the holistic designer part, Emma? Can you tell us what that is?
I have worked for interior design for years, and without sort of realizing it, I was kind of coming at it from a holistic approach, but I sort of thought all designers did this, but I've only kind of realized in recent years that maybe it is a little bit unique, the approach I take. So holistic interior design, it's more than traditional interior design in the sense that it's more than just about how your space looks. It's more about how it makes you feel and how it can support you in achieving, more balance, more well-being, more peace in your life, or whatever your goals might happen to be. So it encompasses, there's different sort of elements of it. Feng Shui is one of the elements of it. Then things like looking at the natural light in your space and, how that can affect your circadian rhythm, how that can improve your mood, can help your sleep, things like that. Looking at your views, like I always, if someone's building a new home, I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to maximize your views, like in maybe the position you build your house, in the size and placement of your windows, things like that, bringing the outside in. And it's kind of about our connection to nature and how that can enhance our well-being. Then minimalism, looking at, maybe how you can pare back some of your possessions that aren't really necessary and that are maybe just cluttering up your home. I know you had mentioned there about energy. That's a big part of what I do as well. It's looking at the energy of your space and maybe how you can use things like crystals, incense, sage, and things like that to kind of improve the energy and the flow of your space. I am big into the law of attraction. I know you are as well, Evelyn. And for years, I used to I was obsessed with making vision boards. But the problem was that I would get so excited. I would like I used to have a whole vision corner in in my bedroom. Like it was literally just plastered full of all these images, and it was inspiring, but it didn't really look very pretty. It was kind of like distracting to the mind. And every time I saw it, it wasn't really, I don't know if it was really helping me achieve my goals or overwhelming me. So I stopped doing those, and instead I started looking at my home as my 3D vision board. So looking at how can I kind of create this kind of sense of inspiration, of, tranquility, of peace, like the different things I wanted to feel in the different areas of my home.
I had a podcast with a lady who does KonMari. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
about the decluttering and making the space. I used to say to my son, your bedroom's a reflection of what's taking place inside your head. A complete
Yeah.
mess, a bomb site altogether. If we have a lot going on in our heads, outside, there's a lot, it's higgledy-piggledy, there's a bit of disorganized, the fear
Totally.
of throwing anything out, the fear that the just in case I might need it, I might fit into it someday, I'll hold on to it, the fear of the inability of letting stuff go. Would you agree or disagree that our home is a reflection of what's taking place with inside people?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And just when you touched on the KonMari and the decluttering, I am massive into that as well. And that would be the first thing I would advise clients to do if they want to redesign their home or build a new home. It's thinking about, look at your space. Is it cluttered? And like a lot of people, I'm really bad for this as well. I try to practice what I preach, but sometimes it does get on top of you. But I am quite minimalist. Like my surfaces are quite clean. But a lot of the time, if I know someone's coming over, I shove things into a cupboard and then I don't look in it for another year, and then it piles up. But even that affects your mind, your mood, your subconscious, all of that, because whether you're consciously aware of it, your mind knows that there's stuff in that cupboard that you have to sort out. And I think when you start with the basics of decluttering, even if you clear out one cupboard or one shelf in your home, the sense of kind of peace you get from that, I think, is amazing. So I think it goes both ways. Your home is a reflection of your inner state, but then there's things you can do around your home, like decluttering, to impact your inner state. So I think it goes kind of
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah, because you've taken the action, the
Mhm.
conscious decision of let's make this happen and let's do this. Let's talk a wee bit about your book, Life by Design. Very, very good. Now, I like that title, Life by Design. It incorporates both, but it was inspired by overcoming the anxiety and birth trauma.
So my daughter was born back in May 2020, in the middle of the first COVID lockdown, which I'm sure everyone remembers wasn't the easiest time. My last couple of hospital appointments were cancelled, and they told me like it was safer just to stay at home than to go into the hospital. So I was kind of like, okay, that was kind of the start of like the anxiety, like, what if something's not right and I'm not getting checked out kind of thing. And then I ended up going 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks overdue. And my husband wasn't allowed to come into hospital with me. Now he was for the actual birth, but then he had to leave like an hour later, and then I had to stay for like 3 days after and stuff like that. So I think that was kind of maybe contributing to it. Probably like a lot of women had this ideal birth plan in my head. I wanted this natural birth. I was doing hypnobirthing. I don't know if you know what that is. But it is similar to the law of attraction. It's kind of using positive affirmations and self-hypnosis to kind of reinforce, this belief in yourself that, you can have this birth that you visualize kind of thing. But I think I maybe took it to the extreme, and I put a lot of pressure on myself that it had to, be perfect. And because I was healthy, there was no issues, all of that. But needless to say, it didn't go to plan. I ended up with an emergency C-section. And as I said, my husband had to leave an hour after she was born, and I had to stay in hospital for a couple of days. So I think it was hard on him as well, not knowing, like just not really having much contact and not being able to see me or our daughter. So got out of hospital, and like we weren't able to see family, there was the isolation period kind of thing. And then my husband went back to work the following week. He works down south. He's in construction, and the building sites had reopened, but everything else in the north was still at a standstill. So he went back to work because obviously we had a new baby, we needed money, we were building a new house. And I just remember because I had a C-section, I was in quite a lot of pain after it and I couldn't drive. And the doctor wouldn't sign me off to drive for 6 weeks. And the midwives wouldn't come out to the house because of lockdown. So I had to make my way into the appointments, but I wasn't allowed to see anyone outside of my husband. So I was like, how do I actually get into these appointments? And they were like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's nobody has an answer here. It was just one of those weird times, you know. So I think that probably contributed to it. But I went back to work after 3 months, and it just kind of felt like everything, you know, was supposed to go back to normal. You know, things started reopening after COVID and things like that. And I wasn't sleeping. My daughter like started sleeping through the night at about 5 weeks, I would say. So I was very lucky in that sense. But I couldn't sleep. And I sort of knew there was something off. Like my heart was just racing all the time. I was constantly on edge. I was constantly worried, checking on her. You know, if she coughed, it would feel like there was a tiger coming to attack me. You know, it was just unexplainable. I'd never experienced that before. And yeah, it just got really bad. So then I tried to distract myself by being really busy during the day. I threw myself back into work. We had started building a new house, so I threw myself into that. I was exercising like crazy, trying to lose the baby weight. I'd started studying for an open university course, and I think I was just trying to get back to some sort of normality by thinking if I did all these things, I wouldn't be feeling like this. But it just got worse. And then on top of that, any sort of time I could fall asleep, I would be having nightmares about the birth, and then that would wake me up. I would constantly be having flashbacks. I like if I saw a scene about a woman having birth or giving birth, sorry, on TV, I would have to leave the room. And I knew this wasn't normal. I was crying every day. And then I don't know, I just was like, you know, I sort of thought the midwives would say, oh yeah, it's normal to be a bit emotional after the first few months. But then I'm kind of like, how long should this be going on for? And when is it, you know, considered a problem? So this went on for about 8 months and I was just exhausted. And that probably contributed, you know, to the low mood and all of that. And I had my wee girl and my dog out for a walk one day and I just broke down crying like in the middle of the road. And it's the first time I had done that. Before that, it was always in private. But I knew then that I actually couldn't control this and it was starting to really affect me. So I got back home and I rang my health visitor and just asked would it be possible for her to call out, you know, for a chat. So she was amazing. She came out the next day and I just broke down and told her everything. And it was the first time I had spoken to anyone about this. And because I think like you don't want to burden people, like people have their own lives and their own struggles and things. So I told her what I was going through and she was just amazing. I remember she came in and she put the kettle on. Like I was going to make tea for her, but she was like, no, sit down, I'll put the kettle on. And I was like, this is just, it's like the nicest thing ever, you know, just when you feel like someone's actually like, you know, like there for you sort of thing. So she put me in touch with this amazing organization called Centered Soul in Newry. They offer counseling services. They have like a yoga studio. They have a cafe and a little shop, and they've opened a new premises last year, maybe the year before, and they are like a profit for purpose organization. I did 12 weeks of that counseling with them, and it was absolutely amazing. Like it was just it had such a huge impact on me. And just having that space where you have someone to talk to, I think everyone nearly needs that. I sort of got to the point where I was like, I don't want this to drag on. I want to do things myself in between the counselling session. And I signed up for every kind of self-help class under the sun. This is the most important thing now, because if I'm not feeling well, I can't do anything. I can't, you know, run my business. I can't be a good mother, a good wife, you know, like I need to like really look at this. I was doing exercise classes, yoga, Pilates. I was doing breath work. I did a gratitude and journaling workshop, mindfulness, meditation. I even accidentally signed myself up for a senior citizen Tai Chi class ran by a lovely lady called Doris. So it's just, but I was like, I am literally willing to try anything here. I love reading personal development books. I got back into that. I started listening to podcasts, and literally within about 3 months, I just felt like a completely different person. I was sleeping through the night. My heart had stopped racing. And I just felt this like contentment that I hadn't felt for years. And it wasn't as if I got back to what I was like, pre-baby. I wasn't back there. I was in a whole new place, and it was a whole new side of myself that I never thought was possible.
So what made you different than I would say 90% of other people say, I'm going to take the action to write this book?
After those 3 months, I was started opening up to people and sharing, what I had gone through, because I didn't have this fear anymore. And to my utter surprise, nearly every woman that I spoke to had a similar story. But then I'm like, why are people not talking about this? So I started sharing some of the things that I was doing, and they were like, oh my God, I never would have thought of that. Just giving them little tips and tricks. And I just thought to myself, they were like, you should like put this out there for women, like make this available or do something. And then I was just like, how can I package this up to make it easy and accessible for women to access some of these tools and things that can help them? So I came up with the idea to write the book, and I got so inspired, so excited. I started making notes and things like that. But then I brought the idea to my counselor, because I think it was in maybe my last session. I had told her about the idea, but my fear was that I'll not follow through with it, because like you said, I know a lot of people have these ideas but don't actually follow through. So she suggested working with a life coach, and I hadn't really heard of what that was before. I thought, is that like Tony Robbins or something? Like, what do you mean a life coach? And she explained kind of what it was. So I literally Googled life coach near me and found a lovely lady, and she held me accountable for writing the book. So every week I would send her a chapter, and she would help me with the proofreading. I became inspired to go back and study as a life coach as well, because I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing service ever. I think it took me about 5 months maybe to write the book, but then I had to go and write book proposals and send it out to publishers, and decide, was I going to get a publisher? Was I going to go self-published? There was the designing of the book. I knew I wanted it to be like really nice and colorful and illustrated and all of that. And I wanted to design it myself. So it was a long process. It didn't just happen sort of overnight. And there were times when I thought, oh, maybe, I shouldn't do this, or maybe that was just a phase in my life that I needed to write about, but I don't actually need to put it out there. But I just kept coming back to it and just thinking, like, why did I do this? It was the reason why I started this in the first place, was to help other women. And if I didn't follow through and put it out there, it would all be for nothing, and it would be nearly like selfish of me to do that, So it was just thinking of the other women that were going through that made me, I think, follow through
Yeah,
and finish
that's,
it.
I think in anything that we're setting, that the mind will either take control,
Yeah.
and say you're not as good as, or look at such and such a blah, blah, blah. I think the purpose of the intentions behind these things, because when you make it about others, it takes the attention away from ourselves. I think when I was doing the books, definitely, I had a business mentor at the beginning, and that he kept me accountable.
Yeah.
But then after that, and when you decide to do your next book, then the next two I could easily do. You know yourself. Imagine if you could have picked up a book at that time and read that and thought, that's what I had needed. And would you think, like, you look back on experiences that aren't so pleasant,
Yeah.
and funny, you talked about stuff there, and I know it's 25 years ago from I had my first daughter, but everything that you explained there was exactly everything that I went through myself. I had the white picket fence imagined. I had, oh, I can't wait for the birth. I can't wait to do and all this here, and oh, toenails painted and all. This is how it was going to happen. This
Yeah.
child, I was so bloody naive. I think I had 3 bibs. I had to have an emergency cesarean at the tail end. I think I was roaring and shouting at the nurses and coming out with all sorts of profanities to them. And I slumped into. I know I did, but I never. I went the same way, but I never told anybody. I was very afraid to say to someone how I was feeling, in case
Mhm.
this record would have followed me through life, has
Yeah.
depression, because
Yeah.
it was something, that I knew that was in the family thing, but I did not want that on my record. Has depression, suffered from depression. And I just thought, I have to find a way out of this. And it's scary, and it's lonely, and it's extremely sad. And I'm really happy now that you have done that, Emma. Um, Because you have to be an extremely vulnerable person to share that story. You're letting people in that Emma Quinn's not just this woman you see on Instagram that designs these fabulous houses that I can see your kitchen now that has this beautiful kitchen. I'm a real person. Real stuff happens to me.
Yeah.
Now, has anybody got reading your book yet?
Yes, it was available for pre-order, I think about a month ago. So yes, the first few copies have been shipped out a couple of weeks ago. And yes, I'm getting a couple of messages from people saying they finished it, and that's kind of surreal because I'm like, oh God, I still have those like, moments where you're like, as you said, it is so vulnerable and you're, showing this whole other side of yourself. And then I think the old me would have like just cringed at the thought of that. So there are moments where I get those pangs, but then I just have to remind myself again why I'm doing this. And there might be people that don't like it or that, it's not for them, but that's fine, because there will be women that it will help. So I just have to
Yeah,
keep reminding myself of that. Yeah.
absolutely. It's that one person. But isn't it amazing too? Because you spoke about earlier on that you're big into law of attraction, the vision boards. And I suppose when we're beginning all this, oh, how interesting, it's very intriguing, all this thing. I wonder, does it work? I wonder, is all these things happening? I mean, it's like there's real life that happened, too. I think sometimes we can delude ourselves until, oh, it should have happened this way.
Yeah.
And then you feel like a failure because it didn't, because that word, even with birthing, natural birth, because then if it's not natural, it must be unnatural. And that's what stuck with me. If
Yeah.
this is not natural, this must be unnatural. I was incapable of
Yes.
being able to deliver a child myself. And I remember I spoke to my aunt, and at that time when she was having a cesarean, they actually went down the belly. So she showed
Oh,
me her scar. And I said, I remember saying it to her, I feel incomplete. I felt incomplete.
yeah.
Is it something that, was that feeling upon yourself, Emma, because it didn't turn
Yeah.
out for you the way that you wanted it?
Yeah, totally. I found it kind of like took away my power almost, and like, yeah, I think I felt very out of control with the whole thing. And I felt that all these decisions were being taken out of my hands and made by someone in a white coat, because they, have more authority. And I think that was kind of part of where the trauma came from. But I think what I'm sort of learning now is that I think we need to do away with the terms like natural birth and things like that and kind of realize that, every birth is unique and every birth can be beautiful. And it's more about the mindset that you go into it with. And I do think it's important to be informed about your choices and all of that, but also to be open-minded and to know that, it mightn't always go as you've planned. But for me, I think that was part of why I struggled for so long because I had been using the law of attraction in the lead up to it. And the law of attraction has been so successful for me, like throughout the years with manifest and all these things. But then that was the one time that I felt like it had let me down. And I was like, why did this not happen the way I had envisioned it? And I think I lost some of the faith then. And that again, that it
Can you
all,
see now
yeah,
why it didn't turn out the way that you went? Because if it
yes,
didn't, this is the
yeah,
magic.
yeah,
If it
absolutely.
didn't, there's no way that book was going out.
Absolutely. If I had this perfect birth, then I wouldn't have had that drive or that passion to go and do something like this. And I probably just would have went back to life the way it was. And, I'm so much, I feel like I've come alive now since this has happened. Life is so much more interesting. I feel like I'm so much more fulfilled in what I'm doing and experiencing kind of everything that life has to offer. It's not just kind of this
Yeah.
two-dimensional sort of thing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that for people when in the midst of trauma, or what we see is very dark, lonely, sad periods of our life. And the last thing you want is somebody to come to you and say, now you got to think positive and visualize it, see it. And you're like,
Yeah,
I would actually choke somebody if they came to me and said that.
yeah,
But I I absolutely 100% believe, like you were saying, Emma, the more work that we put in, the more things that I do for me, the more that I feed my mindset.
yeah,
When things come our way, it doesn't take as long to come through them.
Yeah.
You start seeing things differently, you start seeing life differently. I don't know, you just see things differently. And either the overthinking or the trauma or the thing, they don't last as long. You pass through it quicker and somewhere, as you can see now, but you have to ride the storm. When you look back, can you say to yourself now, I understand why I went through this?
Yeah, definitely. Um, and I think it's very hard in the moment if you are struggling. And I know a lot of people that like still are, in that place. And it is very hard because, as you said, you can't just say it and just visualize your way out of that. But I think it's just taking the first step. Like,
And imagine if nobody actually went through hard times or difficult times, there'd be nobody there to bring me hope in my shitty times.
yeah,
We
yeah,
need people. And that's why this podcast, I always say, if we can make a difference,
yes,
if I
yeah,
can make a difference, because it may resonate with someone, think there's somebody that's gone through what I've gone through. There's hope. There's hope. And that's what it's about. So it's not pleasant. And it doesn't mean you have to be a martyr at the end of it, and do stuff. But I think it's just in a natural, an innate thing. How can I serve? How can I help? What can I do? And we just do it.
yeah. They're definitely
So, Emma, if somebody wants to get their hands on your lovely book, where can they get it?
Yeah, I have a link in my Instagram bio. It's on the publisher's website, Shanway Press. Yeah, so that's probably the best place.
And what I'll do is in the description below here, we'll put the website address or the link
Yep, brilliant. Yep.
in our and we'll put Emma. Is it Emma Quinn just on in Instagram? Emma
EmmaQuinn.design on Instagram.
Emma Quinn Design. You'll see a wee blue tick beside her name.
At the minute, I'm working on a academy for people building new homes to kind of teach this process of holistic interior design and how they can implement that themselves. So I ran a course around this last year, 2 live rounds of it last year, and got really good feedback. Like people really enjoyed it. But one of the things that people said was it was live and the times didn't always suit people. So they kind of liked maybe more of an on-demand version of it. So that's what I'm doing at the minute. I'm creating a kind of a pre-recorded course that people can watch in their own time. Maybe not everyone has the budget to work with a designer one-on-one. So this is kind of a way of getting that design knowledge and experience and all of that, but doing it like empowering people to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Because I would imagine once I'd see interior designer, I'm thinking, right, have you got loads of money in your bank, boys and girls? And look at them fancy pictures. You're like, I
yeah,
wouldn't even want to eat my dinner on that. It's so perfect.
yeah.
But I read a thing this morning about a house. It's bricks and beams, and a home is
Oh,
love and peace. So is that the lovely thing? No matter what your kitchen's made out of, no
yeah,
matter what your windows are made out of, if there's and you always get a sense, when you cross that door to someone's home, you feel it straight away. You feel
yes,
it's a
yeah,
home,
yeah.
that it's not clinical or it's cold or there's a feeling that you always get in
Yeah,
every
it's all
home.
about the energy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, thank you so kindly for your time this morning. So I'll put the details in the description below, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, if you're listening on Spotify, if you want to leave any comments of that, there's a part below. And if you'd like to support this channel in any way at all, there's a subscription for $1.99 on Spotify. Again, the link will be in the description. But I want to say thank you so much again for tuning in and listening. And I hope something that was spoken about today may have made a difference to your day. And you just never know, maybe to your life. Emma, thank you so much.
Thanks, Evelyn.